Hello and welcome to our third podcast for the WVD community. My name is Stefan Dingemanse and I'm here together with Neil and our guest Freek Berson. Freek, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. First of all, thank you for having me on this show. I think you guys are running a great community out there. A huge hot topic as it is today. Kudos for you guys to bring this to a broad audience using your community site and podcasts like it. I think that a lot of people are enjoying the weekly content you are publishing. So, hats off to you guys to get that out there. My name is Freek Berson. I am from the Netherlands. I work for a company called Wortel. We are a system integrator, cloud integrator focusing on the Microsoft platform. And I primarily focus on anything that's related to application and desktop delivery. So similar like you guys probably getting applications and desktops to the user using a remoting protocol. Have been doing that for many years. So I've seen all of the evolutions in regards to terminal services and RDS and a slight bit of Azure Remote App while it was still up and running. And also part of RDS Gurus, which is a team of professionals focusing on application and desktop delivery specifically for the Microsoft platform. Member of different communities, one of which is the MVP community, which I'm a proud member of since I think 2011. So I like to share knowledge with an audience in terms of doing a presentation or writing a blog post, stuff like that. So I enjoy getting that knowledge across and inspiring others to achieve more with this technology.
So cool, nice.
That's good. Sounds like you've got a lot of experience in, and I guess sort of WVD is kind of sort of a nice evolution for you, isn't it? Obviously coming from a strong RDS background.
It is.
Obviously WVD is pretty much RDS in the cloud, right? With a few tweaks and whistles to make it a pure cloud offering. So
yeah, it's great to be able to see the entire evolution. So if you go all the way back to terminal service and RDS, where it always was based on an IaaS model, then we get the evolution of running RDS in the cloud based on an IaaS model as well. So the first releases, I think, were 2012 R2, where you were able to actually deploy RDS in Azure, but this time based on an IaaS infrastructure service model. So you had to deploy all the virtual machines and do all the certificates and the publishing, etc. And then all the way to, first RDMI, remote desktop modern infrastructure, which was sort of the first evolution of WVD, so to speak. So it's great to actually see all of the evolution steps to what we know is WVD today, which I think it's, especially around the whole COVID situation right now, it's really a big topic for many organizations to have a solution to be able to fast and flexible delivery applications and desktops to an end user.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you think about going back, say if you want to deploy an RDS deployment into Azure using virtual machines, I mean, how complicated is that to set up and get configured? Yep. You're talking at least a couple of days, aren't you? And then it was never perfect. And we've gone from literally days of configuring a semi-complicated infrastructure to deploy at the click of a button.
Yep.
And the speeds that things have progressed at now is just insane. I mean, it wasn't until we started to do the newsletter every week that we kind of stepped back and realized, like, look how much is changing. Yep. I mean, every week at the moment, there's a huge announcement. And yeah, I mean, look at what's coming towards the end of the year. It's just speed of its pace is just astounding. So it's certainly got a very bright future, which is what makes us very excited about what's to come. I'm sure it does yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Good. Obviously, a big topic is Teams on WVD. Have you had a chance to test that yet?
I did, yeah. I actually did that yesterday. So I was on the way. Obviously, I have seen the first early steps in an earlier technical preview. I did already see some of it, but it's good to see it actually now being live for public preview. And I must say that the experience is pretty good. I also noticed you guys were testing this out yourself earlier. I think it was today or yesterday.
Yeah, this morning.
This morning, right? Yeah. So what I noticed is that, the experience is really, really good compared to what it was in the past. And I think that really is the next step of getting the entire Office Pro Plus experience inside WVD. Obviously, the first step was getting Outlook right, and the caching of your files and OneNote and OneDrive, and now with the full Teams support, it really becomes it shouldn't be any different if you're running this Pro Plus environment on your local machine or in the WVD environment. And I think they did a great job for this first public release.
Yeah, I think we were testing it very early this morning, weren't we, Stefan? And it's I think we were both I was amazed by it because the audio and video was just absolutely crystal clear. I actually do have a customer who's actually using Teams inside their WVD desktop, but obviously it works, but the experience is not great, and obviously it's thrashing the CPU. So yeah, I think for this, it's a massive game changer, personally, that I see. I presume a lot of, you've probably found as well, that a lot of customers may have been blocked by this previously. So hopefully this unleashes WVD to be even a more better solution for more customers, hopefully.
Yeah, I think it really delivers on the promise that Microsoft did, I think, a year ago, when they said, we want to have a full Office Pro Plus experience inside this WVD environment. This had to be done to make that last step, so to say. I think that, like you said, a lot of customers for this, it was a blocking issue because they didn't have a full Teams experience. But I think there still are two types of customers: the ones that are using a modern device, a personal assigned device, physical laptop, desktop that is Azure AD joined and managed by Intune. And most of their applications are software as a service or web-based or apps from an app store. And they leverage WVD to publish a set of remote apps, traditional applications, and integrate those in the local full desktop. And for them, it wasn't an issue because they were using the full Office suite locally, including Teams. But it really became an issue for the ones that were using WVD as the full desktop environment, the second environment where every application is in there, including Teams, because you do not want to switch back and forth to your local Teams and then to your full desktop session. So it's great to see. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Certainly is. So obviously you've been working with WVD a lot. I presume pretty much from day one as well. So have you been, obviously, how much demand have you seen within your company personally? Do you see a lot of demand for it?
A lot of demand, yeah. I remember the days where WVD was still into public preview and even private preview. I had a couple of customers who reached out and said, we do not care that it's not GA yet. We want to go ahead and start a small pilot environment with this service, because they already noticed that this is going to take away a lot of management, a lot of costs. Many of those were running RDS, IS environments in Azure back then. So you had to run like 6 or 7 virtual machines to be able to get that RDS infrastructure going. And then all of the announcements came around licensing, that you did not even have to use an RDS CAL anymore. And then came Windows 10 multi-session. So there's been a huge demand for this service, even before the GA date. And I think that after the GA date, it was insane. And then add to that the whole COVID-19 situation, and it became one of the top things that Microsoft is talking about today as well. And I also heard someone from Microsoft mention that in their Q1, so that's starting from July, WVD will be some of their priorities as a sales organization as well. So they will be pushing WVD as a service a lot from their first quarter in July. So I think that things are only going to get bigger in this space.
Yeah, it will definitely be. Yeah,
I'm sure you've seen the same, right, for your customers.
Yeah, I mean, we're working with we've had a few customers, and I know one we're working with. We did some cost calculations, and they're a typical customer. They had RDS in running virtual machines in Azure. And due to COVID-19, they had to scale up, and their environment came very expensive very quickly. And we did some cost estimations just last week for them, and WVD is like 50% cheaper than the RDS environment. So, I mean, we're talking a lot of money. So, yeah, it's great. So, as we said before, I can only see demand increasing as the service just gets better and better and better.
Yeah, and even besides the whole cost and management aspect, it's also about security, because the whole RDS it was still all about Active Directory, right? So there was no Azure AD involved. You could do things like an MFA connection between the RD Gateway components and Azure MFA. I've written those articles to be able to configure that. It's a pain to be able to configure it, and even that doesn't give you the full Azure AD conditional access experience that you get out of the box with WVD. So it is Azure AD, it is conditional access, you get all of the security rules on top of it as well. So that really also helped a lot of customers to move forward, seeing that now it finally is a full identity Azure AD driven solution.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. Is there anything you wanted to chat about, Stefan?
There's a lot to talk about today. So, like we said before, it's in the beginning it was you have to create like your load balancing, your connection brokers, licensing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And what I see right now is the focus on like images and applications and user experience.
Yep.
So what I noticed is you don't have to spend much time in maintaining your infrastructure, and you can just focus on delivering like the optimizations for your users with WVD.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I am curious for Freek. What's your opinion about that? What think about that?
Yeah, I think you're hitting it on the spot. It's exactly like that. So customers, I have a lot of them that they were not able to deploy RDS in IaaS, and even with a lot of help, even a simple topic like configuring certificates in an RDS deployment, which should be relatively easy. If you do not have the knowledge about where those certificates were used in terms of signing RDP files and getting web access going and RD gateway coding, even such a small component of that whole RDS infrastructure was super complex. And right now, I think that any Azure engineer who has a little bit of Azure background should be able to deploy the WVD service itself. But yeah, like you said, once you've deployed WVD, you end up with a server-based computing environment. And that's something that I think that not many customers still realize, is that not the entire service is fully managed for you. It's only the infrastructure component. So what you end up with is a set of virtual machines, which are just a server-based computing environment, right? So all of the knowledge that you and I and everyone has been gathering about server-based computing environments, that still applies. So things like image optimization, like you said, but also how do you deal with profiles and how you deal with management and how do you securely lock down a multi-user environment in that space as well. I think that is right now the focus for many Microsoft partners who are helping organizations to move to WVD. Is that's where they can still add their value because of that whole SBC area. So yeah, I think we can really focus on the end-use computing experience right now, and there's a lot of tools out there that actually capture that experience as well. Also in terms of how much latency is acceptable, what about bandwidth, and the types of clients, etc. So we can now really focus on what's really important is the end-user experience. So the application landscape, and making sure that the log-on time is acceptable and stuff like that. So there's a lot of opportunity, I think, for partner organizations to also jump in. Besides the fact that WVD, you can enroll it in like 10 minutes, even with the new GUI right now. So yeah, I think you're going to see a big focus change. That's obviously what Microsoft is doing as well with the whole Teams integration, like we said, but also around applications and app attach, so making it easier to build your golden images, stuff like that. We can now really focus on that next step, now that the entire infrastructure is being managed for us as part of the service.
Yeah. So we started with FS Logic. So that one is clear. So I think everybody which is doing the WVD deployments is using FS Logic.
I hope so.
And
Yeah.
so we separated the profiles from the machines, from the host. And yeah, the next thing will be the app attach.
Yep.
I myself don't got a lot of experience with the app attach. I've been playing around with it for a few times, but are you already using app attach for your customers, or?
Yeah, I have a couple of customers who were willing to dive in when it was also a technical preview, it's not even public preview, so before that. Because, well, we did a couple of demos with a simple Notepad++ application, and I showed them that, within an instant, even on a live session, I could add and remove an application for a user. That blew customers away who were used to dealing with golden images and creating a new image and updating the application and sysprepping that machine and capturing it to an image and then deploying it again. If you could show them that an application update could take seconds, and even in a live session, you could just swap those applications. Yeah, that's a huge demand for that. So I think that right now the most common application landscape approach is still the golden image approach, so either one or multiple golden images, installing the applications in there, and obviously DevOps is a big play in that, where you can automate a lot of those steps as well, to make sure that you do not have many manual steps to deploy a new template VM and install software, etc. I think that golden image is still the most commonly used approach. And obviously FS Logic helps with that as well, with their masking technology. So we can have a single golden image for multiple departments and just mask a couple of applications for different departments. And probably some organizations are also still using application virtualization, so AppV streaming technologies, which I think we're going to see less, especially with the AppV or with the app attach technology coming up. So yeah, what I've seen, it's really impressive the way they simply attach an application similar to the profile disk, and yeah, hopefully that's going to be a big part of their focus on the next year. Yeah.
Yeah, because I come from a Citrix background,
Right.
and obviously with Citrix, the golden image stuff is mainly what people use as an image management solution. They create a golden image and deploy that via Citrix MTS and stuff. What I'm starting to see at the moment, especially in the WVD world, is a lot more people are sort of leaning towards doing stuff by automation. Whether the process of updating your image, sysprepping it, updating new machines, etc., is kind of going away, and people are kind of using sort of ARM automation templates to basically, you essentially create a new image every month. People used to do that sometimes in Citrix world and using Citrix provision services. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, obviously you've done WVDs quite a lot of customers. What's your general opinion on the automation stuff, and what do you generally see out there in the wild?
I did. I started using ARM templates, I think 3 years ago. One of my colleagues was demoing in an internal company session. He was demoing how he was deploying his SharePoint server using an ARM template. And back then I did not have any ARM or JSON or PowerShell, well, PowerShell experience, but not really the Azure stuff. And he was showing that within 10 minutes, he could deploy in this case, based on his expertise, a SharePoint server. Yeah. I was like, wait a minute, what if we could do that for an RDS deployment? And that's how I started building my own ARM template for RDS, which in the beginning only did a couple of roles and the session host role and gluing all of those components together. But I started evolving on that template, and in the end, I got a full ARM template that could deploy an entire RDS deployment, so including connection brokering, gateway, web access roles, installing certificates, and even doing customization and branding on the web access page and publishing applications. Now that ARM template could run in any existing Azure subscription, with the only prerequisite being that there should be an AD ready, and obviously a certificate somewhere on a central store. And that deployed in 40 minutes. So I remember demoing that at a couple of community sessions and also at Ignite 2018. And yeah, then I really started seeing the power of ARM templates, which was, well, looking back only the beginning, because then the whole DevOps stuff got it included as well, where even deploying the ARM template is done in an automated way. And I think that many organizations, many customers are looking forward to having that as a full management solution for WVD as well. So I'm a big fan of ARM, and I love writing that verification code as well. So I think that a big step for the WVD service was getting to the spring release, obviously, because before that you had to jump through a lot of hoops to get WVD going, like the PowerShell and the consent pages and doing all of the tenant admin. Well, you've all had that experience as well. If you compare that to spring release and now being fully on an ARM template, then you can just run a single ARM template and have it deploy your host pools and your workspaces and your app groups. Yeah, that's a big step for them, because they really had to comply to all of the Azure rules that are out there, because they wanted to be a first-party service within the Azure portal. So they had to conform to how they deploy services and how they deploy templates, etc. So I think that that move to spring 2020, a lot of people see it as we finally got a GUI around Windows Virtual Desktop, but it's much more than only that. The biggest thing is really that it's all about full ARM integration and being a first-party service right now.
Yeah, I think we've had the infrastructure as code. It's now time for desktops as code, right?
Yeah, desktop as code. I like it. Yeah,
that's a new thing I've invented. Desktops as code.
Yeah, you should claim that name.
Yeah, it's quite, because let's say I'm come from a sort of much more on-prem Citrix background, so
right.
I think a lot of people are going to have the same challenge around sort of, especially if they're used to sort of managing desktops, trying to sort of get your head around how you do things in a Azure automated world kind of way, as you say, using ARM templates and using PowerShell to automate stuff and stuff like that. So it's going to be interesting development and learning experience for a lot of people. I would have thought, because you sort of, I saw as well, I think when you start talking about deploying desktops in Azure, you're sort of mixing the infrastructure stuff with the desktop stuff, aren't you? Like normally your desktop admins just manage the desktop side of stuff. So they manage the applications and the SCCM infrastructure, and they manage all the GPOs and stuff like that. I guess, but now as we're moving to WVD, you say you manage that. Now you've got to do all this as well. So it's going to be challenging for some, but I think it's definitely worthwhile. But once you see the benefits that it brings, I think a lot of people will cherish how much easier and faster it is to deploy desktops compared to the old way.
Yeah, I think that the role for many existing sysadmins, in the past they were all managing their on-premises hardware hypervisor environments and machines on top of that. Then they got the next evolution where a lot of that was moved to public cloud. So they had to shift from being an on-prem sysadmin to being a cloud sysadmin. But those desktops still remain. So now we get that second evolution where they do not even have to worry about all that infrastructure anymore. Just focus on optimizing user experience and getting the best experience for the end user in that virtual desktop.
Exactly. Especially when the Nirvana solution is surely coming soon, where you've got an image that's pretty much managed for you as code. You've got your applications which are sitting in MSX app attached outside of the image. You've got obviously your Teams optimization, which is in place. And then you have all your auto scaling done for you as well. Because I know a lot of our customers have been asking for that as well. Like, I know auto scaling is coming towards the end of the year, where you will be able to scale up and scale down automatically based on your requirements. Which, if you think about that from a cost saving perspective, that's hugely powerful, because we discussed briefly about the RDS, the money you save from going from RDS infrastructure down to a WVD infrastructure, but you get even more savings once you put the whole thing in place, where if half of your infrastructure isn't in use, it just switches off automatically for you. You don't have to worry about it. So
I totally agree.
And nothing even turn off, just completely removed. and when it's needed, those machines will be created.
Yeah.
Like it's the same with Citrix Cloud.
Yeah.
When you configure the scaling over there, those machines will get destroyed. When there's a lot of demand, those machines will be created with the machine creation service.
Mm-hmm.
Will be running on Azure.
Yeah, that'll probably be the next step as well. I have a couple of customers who are also using the GPU series within Azure. So I have a couple of education customers who, well, also have this COVID challenge right now because all the schools are closed, and they have a lot of classrooms where they have physical machines with GPUs and running all kinds of graphical intensive applications. And they now also start leveraging WVD to be able to do online classes on the machines with the GPU enabled. And for them, scaling is obviously a big the big exclamation mark, because the NV series VMs, they are very very expensive to run 24/7. They obviously have the additional benefit that they have a lot of school vacation periods where they can completely shut down the machines. So they are also now leveraging WVD to be able to do online lessons, even with graphical intensive applications, and save a lot of costs eventually when they are now really thinking about trimming down the number of physical classrooms and just doing online classrooms in the near future as well. So yeah, even for those graphical intensive workloads, it's becoming a lot of benefits in that area as well.
Yeah, it takes me back to a few years ago, because that was a use case for one of my first Citrix deployments.
Okay.
Because we had a customer where another company had deployed a RDS environment to them. Now this is a school, and they mainly use Flash-based applications. Mm-hmm. So obviously RDS back then, we're talking more than 5 years ago here. So obviously back then RDS wasn't that great at dealing with sort of Flash animations and stuff like that. So we had to go in and we deployed them a Citrix deployment. Now, obviously you had all the Flash media redirection in place for them. Obviously that was a lot better after we deployed that. So it's weird seeing that whole cycle go here around over and over again, because obviously we've got the same with the WVD optimization for Teams and stuff like that. So yeah, it's nothing really changes, does it? It's just a different way of doing things.
It is, yeah. I agree, yeah.
And there isn't much being changed, because it's the same when creating those images. Most customers already got like their automations in place to install those applications. If it's like with MDT or SCCM, we can still leverage those management solutions to create those images, deploy the applications. In a later stage, you can, I think, get rid of things like or SCCM with just the image gallery, the customizations on the Azure Image Builder. So we will see a change in that one also.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think that obviously Appetite is going to be a huge change, but it's going to take a lot of time before every application is suitable for that technology. I think we're going to see a big hybrid period as well, where hopefully a lot of applications can be transformed into those Appetite applications, but there will still and probably always be Windows applications that are not able to run in such a container or not perform well in that scenario. But I remember that I think it's almost 7 or 8 years ago, where we had a discussion with the product team of RDS in Redmond in one of the MVP Summit days, and we were brainstorming about what if there would be a way that we could move a live user session from one VM to another. And I remember that somebody referred to that as live user session migration, as sort of a brainstorm thing. It's similar to how you move a virtual machine from one hypervisor to another. What if I would be able to move that user from one WVD session host to another to do maintenance, etc. And then obviously with the FS Logics, you already decouple a lot of profile and storage information for that user. With Appetite, you also decouple the actual application from the session host. So eventually that session host could only have the operating system, and we have a couple of drivers and a couple of configurations, and nothing on it. So then we get closer to the ultimate goal. We should be able to live migrate a user from one VM to another. So I think that AppAttach is adding to that a lot. So hopefully someday we'll actually have that experience.
So at this moment with things like AppAttach, is like you got some applications with the context integrations, like 7-zip. Is that supported in AppAttach?
Not everyone. I've seen a couple of applications where it goes wrong, where there's a really tight integration between context menus, and sometimes file type association is a little bit weird. So it's really an early stage technology right now. So I would not encourage anyone to go full production in this and start transforming all of their applications. But the fact that it's public preview right now, it really gives you the opportunity to test drive this. So just grab one of your single application and start using it, start experiencing, to see if that changes for you. Because even if you have only a couple of those applications away from your golden image and away from your regular management sequence, that saves you a lot of time and effort, obviously. Yeah. But it's still an early technology preview, so I would not encourage anyone to do a full AppAttach environment.
Or
right now.
just focus on applications which will get like updates once every week, for example.
Yeah, good idea.
Then MSC AppAttach will be a great addition to updating your image without updating your image.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a couple of, for example, you see that a lot in healthcare organizations where you have an application that updates, well, like you said, almost every week. And usually we need to get that application vendor involved to be able to also install and update the application. If you can have that in an automated way, using AppAttach and using the DevOps technology to also automate that whole part, that's going to save a lot of time and effort. Definitely, I agree. Yeah.
Has anyone got a GA date on that? I mean, I'm not seeing any confirmed or even estimate dates when it's going to become generally available.
No, I don't have those dates either. I think that the last time that Microsoft presented AppAttach was a couple of weeks ago during a community event. They also referred to the basic roadmap, but did not attach any dates to it. I know that the next step that they're taking is actually integrating it into the WVD service. That's going to be the next step. That's going to be in private and then in public preview as well.
So
but I don't have
using those scripts. And
exactly.
A lot you can integrate it with WVD.
Yes, yeah. So right now it's a PowerShell script that actually attaches and detaches the application and also staging it to make sure that it's mounted. Those steps will be integrated into the WVD service as well. And probably they will wait for a GA once that integration is in there to avoid having every customer run PowerShell scripts here and there and having those all over the place. But I do not have, unfortunately, I do not have any dates either. No.
Okay, good. Is there anything else that you wanted to discuss? Any tips or tricks for us?
Well, I think that another use case that I've also wrote a blog article about is having administrators also leverage the WVD service for their management tasks. Okay. So what we see a lot is that if you take a customer to Azure or any public cloud for that matter, the first thing you really do is make sure that the identities get into that public cloud. So for Azure, that's Azure AD. So the first step is that you create an Azure Active Directory that you could do syncing. You probably have a first domain controller virtual machine in your Azure subscription. You start to add AD Connect to be able to synchronize your identities. And then you get to the point where you actually start adding applications in terms of backend servers, SQL servers, or application servers, or maybe a WVD service. So the more components you bring within the Azure environment, the more you really also want a management environment to be able to connect those to those resources. And obviously you can do that on-prem, to have a management server on-prem that connects to the Azure environment using site-to-site VPN or ExpressRoute. But it also makes sense to have that management machine right in the same Azure subscription. So in the past, we've been doing, customers, a big project it's always been that, we just deploy a management machine in there, and we add in an NG to it, and we'll just open it up for every IP address that we need for our customer location and the partner location to be able to RDP that into that environment, which is not really 100% secure, and there's a lot of maintenance to be able to have that energy updated. So for some organization, what we did in the past is just deploy a mini RDS deployment with a single broker, single gateway, and a management VM, and use the RDS service to be able to deploy a management server on any device based on certificates and based on MFA using the RD gateway component. But now with WVD, I could really encourage organizations to also start reusing that for their sysadmins. So what if you just deploy a single workspace, host pool, app group with a single management machine on, and it's hopefully based on Windows 10 multi-session to also avoid having the RDS-Cal license. And then just leverage that for your sysadministrators and for your application vendors or any other partners that you'd like to remotely log into your environment to just leverage the WVD service. So I think there's a lot of benefits, also from a cost perspective and management perspective, but also to have your administrators, basically eat your own dog food and start experiencing what the end user sees when leveraging the WVD service. So yeah, that's something I encourage customers to do as well.
That's good. Yeah, you've got you posted on your blog about that, didn't you? About how you did that via an ARM scripts, complete end to end.
Yeah. So internally, we developed an ARM template that does that fully in an automated way. So it's a single ARM template that deploys the resource group, the workspaces, the app groups, the host pools, the machine in there, and does the entire configuration. And within 15 minutes, you have an environment up and ready to be able to connect and do remote management. So we do a lot of ARM templates, also in a broader sense within our company. So to be able to deploy all kinds of other Azure aspects as well. But we integrated this into our default set of deployments. So for every customer that we now deploy, we just deploy WVD and have a management server up and running. It's pretty good.
That's good, because suppose if you give that, say, if I'm a sysadmin, for example, I've never really done much with WVD before, and you give me this ARM template and say, look, deploy this, and it's going to do this. Mm-hmm. If you've never touched WVD before and you've never done much with ARM templates, you are going to be like, wow, this is amazing. So, and as you said, it's dog food. So they'll get used to, seeing what the user sees, doing what the user does, and they've found the power of ARM templates.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah, we also like to do, if we deploy an ARM template or create an ARM template, also have a couple of default values, but also a set of selectable values. So if I deploy this template, I could have a drop-down list saying I want to deploy it in this host pool, in this organizational unit, with this account, etc. So to make it also easier without having the whole DevOps experience to also even deploy it in an easy way. So I could just hand over that template to an admin. You could deploy it and select it using a couple of drop-down boxes and just deploy it in their environment. So
good. Very powerful.
It is, yeah. So obviously, you have a lot of experience with WVD, testing it as well. What are some of the things that you run into that you would like to see changed in the future, or issues that you run into, or common things?
So the one thing I would like to see change is the single sign-on experience.
I agree.
That's the first thing.
Yeah.
So I just noticed this morning, I think I noticed it, the new remote desktop client.
Mm-hmm.
You now choose, you don't have to fill in your email address anymore. You can just choose your account.
Yeah.
So for like a workspace, Azure AD joined, the remote desktop client installed, you can just pick your account and subscribe to the feed.
Yeah.
So the next thing will be like the single sign-on experience between that client and your resources in your domain.
Yeah,
And I know
agree.
there is one way, and that's the ADFS way.
Mm-hmm.
But we are just moving from ADFS to like native Azure and Office 365 services.
Yeah.
So that will be the biggest thing, I think.
Yeah,
Single
I
sign-on
agree. That
experience.
I've had that feedback a lot, and obviously you could somewhat hide that by caching the credentials in the local credential store. So it is sort of a same sign-on experience. But yeah, once that password changes or expires or whatever, it's it's not a full single sign-on experience. That's definitely one of the first things that I also get back as feedback. And funny that you mentioned that ADFS part. It is out there, and there's a guide out there that actually helps you deploy it. But Microsoft also once said that, yeah, that guide is out there, but the reason we're not actively publishing it is because we want to move away from ADFS.
Yeah.
So that was the first complaint that I got from the ADFS team and similar teams. Like, why are you doing this with ADFS? We want to move away from ADFS. So that guide is out there, but I haven't seen any customer deploy it yet, because I think there are some tricky things about that deployment as well. It's not fully working the you would expect it to be. But yeah, I agree that single sign-on is definitely
I never implemented with the ADFS. I read the document. I got it from somebody from Microsoft to deploy for a customer, and I already created the design for it based on that document, but never implemented it.
Yeah.
And yeah, so the customer was also saying like guest credentials, and it's like a kind of single sign-on. But yeah, indeed, when you change your password, for example, it's not that experience anymore. Yep. And there were a lot of hoops to go through to set it up and connect all those different things, because you had to create a connection between your Azure AD between your WVD tenant and your ADFS and set up a lot of stuff. So yeah, that will definitely be the next thing to make available for customers. And I think there is already, because there is a service which is like matching your Azure AD credentials from your subscription to log in to the host with your domain credentials. So I don't know why it's still not there, honestly.
I think that the next step they're also working on is getting those Windows 10 multi-session machines actually Azure AD joined instead of AD joined. That's a big thing that I get back from customers, especially the ones that are not even having an AD anymore. They only have Azure AD. And they were like, why would you have to deploy a domain controller or use Azure AD domain services? So I think that's going to be the next step as well, as having those machines Azure AD joined, and then eventually also Intune managed, so that there you have a single management solution for your local machines as well as for WVD. And then it really should not matter anymore, like we said before, with the whole user experience with Office 365 and Teams being available. You just deploy a desktop using Intune, and whether you deploy it on a physical machine or within WVD, it should not matter, hopefully, anymore anytime soon. Yeah, that's going to be a big step as well, having those two machines Azure AD joined. And I think that once that's there, it's going to take a lot of easier steps to accomplish that full single sign-on as well.
Yeah, I think Active Directory is slowly going to die away, isn't it, over the next few years? Because as you said, most a brand new customer today, why would you want it? Why would you deploy Active Directory? Because traditionally we've got Active Directory for users to log on to, which you can do as your AD, domain join machines, which you can now do as your AD joins. Group policies, you can do Intune to manage all your policies. So yeah, it's a whole new world.
Yeah, I think that most of my customers are still using the AD because that's just the best experience. I have a couple of customers using the Azure AD domain services, which is just still Active Directory, but then managed for you. But yeah, hopefully we'll get that full AD join experience soon. Yeah, great.
And I think the support for other thin client vendors,
right,
it will be the next thing.
Yeah.
So at this moment, you got the Agile OS.
Yeah.
So I really love that OS, and the only reason it's because of the single sign-on experience.
Yeah.
Well, you just click on the icon, you log in, and even with your multi-factor authentication, and then for example, when you just got like one resource assigned to you, it's starting that resource, and that's the experience we are looking for.
Yeah.
At this moment, yeah, you can install IGLS on HP devices, on Wisting clients, and all those vendors. But I'm really curious when, like, HP, for example, will natively support WVD.
Yeah, I think we're getting closer to that. I think that a big change is also that now not only the WVD team and RDS team, but also within the entire Microsoft company is strongly working with partners as well. So we all know that there's a lot of ecosystem partners around WVD, and Agile is one of those partners as well. I think that group of ecosystem partners will only grow even further. To have also other thin client vendors have that same WVD experience. And I agree, I totally love the Agile experience as well. I had a couple of customers who were also using that UD Pocket, so really tiny ones. They were amazed to just insert a USB stick and just have the Agile OS and WVD client running, even on existing thin clients. So I have some of them that are reusing thin clients that are a bit older and do not support anything else yet. Just stick in the USB stick and boot from it, and I have that full experience. So
got mine here.
Exactly that one. Yeah. It's the smallest thin client that you can think of, right?
It is.
But for customers, like I've got a customer with, I think, almost 1,200 users right now on premises RDS environment with a lot of thin clients. But when they want to move to WVD, for example, they got only one choice, and that's go for the Agile OS.
Yeah.
And then it will be like a very big investment to get all those thin clients moved to the Agile OS, your support contract for like 1, 2, 3 years.
Yeah, I agree.
Maybe, I don't know, they got another license for, I think, to, for example, use Teams locally. You need the other subscription. So for a customer which is going to move from their on-prem RDS environment to WVD, yeah, they need to pay like way too much money to get the Agile OS running on those thin clients.
I agree. Yeah. I think that
for example, with HP or with your traditional RDSH environment, you can create like a shortcut to that resource, to that collection, and you got for flex workers, for thin clients, which will be used by multiple people, like with the remote desktop client, for example, it's not meant or not built for that.
Yeah.
You have to subscribe to that feed. You have to open up your resources. When you're done, you're logging off, but your feed is still active.
Yep.
So those are also things I would like to see be changed in the future, especially with the subscription part.
Yeah.
Where you don't have to subscribe anymore like that, but you can use it for like the flex workers where multiple people log into the same system.
Yeah.
They can leverage the WVD environment with their own account or their own identity.
Yeah. I think that's the fast user switching. You mean that you could just log on with a USB stick or with your credit card, SIM card, etc. Yeah, definitely something. I think that now that they have fully opened up the REST API for WVD, that's going to be a lot easier for other third-party vendors to also start engaging. I know that they were working towards that point to have a full REST API open and documented and ready for third-party vendors. That's now finally there. So that's the reason that that Agile also has the Spring release now updated in their clients. So hopefully that will encourage, like you said, other third-party vendors to follow that path and also have it available on their systems. I agree. Yeah, hopefully.
Cool.
Good. I think we're approaching the time limit here. Don't want to keep you away from your family too much, Freek.
That's okay.
Is there anything else you want to have a chat about, Stefan?
No, not really at the moment.
I'm here.
Good.
That's what I thought.
That's my...
That's the smartwatch.
Your smartwatch just wants to say something.
It does. Quiet. Cool. Is there anything else you want to just mention, quickly before you end this, or?
No, not really. Just well, thank you for having me on the show. I enjoy watching your content and your weekly blogs. So keep it up, and
Thank you.
yeah, looking forward to much more collaboration and content in that area. So
Yeah,
thanks.
definitely. Right.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on. This
Thank you.
appreciated. Thanks.
Sure.
Bye.
Thank you, Freek. Thank you.